So I want to start welcoming everybody here today. We're going live on YouTube, and I'm getting that set up now. For those of you who are joining on YouTube, make sure you reach down there and like this afterwards if you find it helpful. But also subscribe to our channel. It'll alert you when we do go live. And this will be a live session for those of you in our room. I'll give you an opportunity to ask some questions after, if you'd like. But during this session, I want to make you aware for your privacy reasons. Let me get the slideshow started. Helps me out because today we're going to talk about a topic that I get a lot of inquiries about, and this is we're on the third of a series. Oops, excuse me. Um, Third of a series specifically on how to write a response and what needs to be involved with one as you're checking it out and reviewing it. And so this is actually a topic that's always of concern to new contractors first starting out. And so how do you actually go about using that? So here we are today at Gov School. It's a service of Gov Directions. We learned early on here that it's helpful to not only find the bids that we go out and aggressively collect for you, about 5,000 new bids and proposals every day. In fact, right now we're seeing record numbers of new transactions that you could be eligible for. As we all know, the federal government was kind of shut down for a little bit, and now it's just caught up. It's just that I think I saw 1,700 new listings today, and the state and local governments are all a lot of them starting the July 1 fiscal year have got fresh budgets, and they're just coming out now with proposals that they've been building for the last couple of months. They kind of know, as you probably imagine, in government contracting, they plan on these transactions years sometimes in advance. So they're all excited about them and they're ready to go and they get those RFPs, and so they hit the gate running. And be aware of that because you should be ready right now with your information you're actually going to provide back to the response. So teaching you and helping you understand how to win is a big part of our services. And I would just point out that now we're in our 28th year, and we've actually, I would think we've gone and we've had about at least 60,000 individuals go through some sort of Gov School session since we started our services in this area around 2008 or nine, I think, when we first started. And then we sort of went online with when we got Zoom, really made it a lot easier, and it just continued to expand. And so we're just really excited and thankful. If you learn nothing else today, you're going to learn that we really appreciate your use of our services, and we are enthusiastic about what we do. We really feel like we help folks change folks' lives. In fact, we get unsolicited responses from folks all the time, says how this particular uh, contract just changed the way they're doing business. And as much as we want to take credit for it, it's really you learning how to do it and move it on. We believe in that proverb, teach a person how to fish and you feed them for a lifetime. And that's our goal here. So here we are on lesson three, past performance and references. And it's important to understand your track record. And I was actually telling somebody this other day using a subcontractor. I was like, yeah, he's trading on your name. So be careful because your track record speaks louder than your proposal, whatever you do. So they're going to check you out and make sure you are that you say you're able to do what you say you do, and that's important. So you got to start building it now, and you'll use as you go forward. So let's move ahead in our PowerPoint here. So why does it really make a difference? Okay, the typical. I just over here on the right hand side, some big. Always use the big numbers there to kind of catch your attention, but 15 to 30% of almost every transaction is built is evaluated for past performance, and that's where a lot of the weight is at. And CPARS is at the federal level, the official performance rating system. Oftentimes, you don't even see what they're saying. Some officers will send you that report, and you can keep that. In fact, I like to the ones that I have for my clients. I grab it and I use it as an image on the presentation we send. So you don't even have to go to CPARS if they want to. We give them that report, and that actually sends a strong signal to them that you're confident about your ability to service their transactions. And almost always, the number that are required is about three. On average, you'll see between two and five. Okay. I would tell you always have about five ready to go. Now, as you grow in your business and you service more companies, I think I've mentioned I've served about 400, just over 400 projects in some 36 states. So I actually isolate those references in different ways. So if I work with the municipal government, I have city references. If I work in Georgia, I have Georgia references, and so forth. So you can organize them and tag them in different ways. And it's important that, one thing you should always do whenever you're working with clients that you build up those references is make sure you get a letter of reference on every transaction, even if it's just a letter of completion for every project that you're working on. And that way you can keep up with it. Frankly, um, there's been so many years this past on some of these. Some of these I've worked two or three times, and I often forget who I've actually worked with. It's just that I actually bid on one project and won, and then realized I did work for them before, and that's you don't want to get to that point, but it happens. Past performance is always weighted. It is a big, important part because I think I've mentioned over and over again in our classes here that the easiest way for a procurement officer to lose their reputation is to get in front of a city council and say, you know what, that was a wrong choice, and we made a mistake. And so the way they get past that or to avoid that is that they rely on somebody else to help them out. Phone a friend and phone a buddy and see what they say about you. And so that is why it's so important because they don't mind paying you a little bit too much money sometimes. They just don't want to get their reputation stained a little bit on your inability to do something. So you don't want to have that happen. So that's why it's so important. A satisfactory rating can hurt your score. Okay, always aim for outstanding. Now, your evaluation criteria, you typically, first of all, you want to get pass or fail. Those when you see that, and then whenever you actually are scoring for a proposal, satisfactory is cool. But whenever you're getting a review, you want outstanding. Okay, it's very hard to get outstanding on an actual proposal that you're sending in, but when you're completed, it is not that difficult to get. I wouldn't say it's not difficult. You got to do a good job. Okay, so you got to get that. You certainly don't want unsatisfactory. That's just you got to resolve every issue. And we one of my clients, I do some compliance work for compliance and for excuse me, compliance work for some of my clients, and there was an issue, and so the initial thinking was we'll take care of this over time. I'll get to them next week. I'm like, no, no, we got to stop what we're doing right now, and within 1 hour, we got to get this person happy. And we did. And they were appreciative because you've got to get that outstanding, you've got to be responsive. You can't just ignore what they're telling you. So make sure you do everything possible to get that once you do get a contract. Evaluators actually call your references. I don't know if they're getting anybody to pick up because I get so many these spam calls these days, but no, they'll get them. They know they it comes across the board whenever it's as a fellow contracting officer, so they know, and they'll email them back and forth. But go ahead and ask them what they're going to say about you before you put them on there. Confirm that they will answer. Make sure they're available. All the details that you provide in your reference, you want to make sure it's there. And then, of course, CPAR's ratings are permanent records. They follow your company years and years, and it's important you get a good one. So I can't stress that enough. And it can really harm you if you don't. So, and no past performance equals a neutral rating. Um, so you got to have something, okay? But it's neutral. It doesn't hurt you. So it's there, but a real advantage if and that is actually, so that's an advantage to you when you first start out, because if you are someone who has a past performance on in the books and CPAR's rating and it's negative or it's just satisfactory, that's a demon to against somebody who doesn't have that. So just know that going into it, and when you weight those scores, 15 to 30% really means something. So what counts really as a past performance? That's the other part. Mark, I don't really have any. Oh, here's six different areas that you can find past performance to speak to. And unfortunately, at the very top here, I keep saying lesson four. I need to change that as I go along because it's actually lesson three today, we have that misplaced there. So this is the third of four. Federal contracts are the gold standard of past performance. You got one, that's cool. You good. Okay. It's the gold standard. State and local contracts, they're gold is too. There's like it's they're both gold, I would think. It says counts when relevant, include stuff. Staff needs to understand that whenever they prepare these slides for me, that this is they're both equal. So they're just as long as it's a contract, both of them will get you. You need the one. Now, a federal contractor officer certainly likes to look at other federal contracting officers, certainly. But if you got state and local, it's just as helpful. The federal contractor and officer has, they have warrant levels and in place, and they have responsibilities that potentially not up at the state and local level. So therefore, they do rely on each other a little bit more. because they basically stand good for you. And so that's something to help you understand that that's why it's so important to be outstanding and also to use them. They are valuable. If you're a subcontractor to someone, you can use those as valid. If you can document your specific role, always do. 60, 70% of my work is subcontract work. I come in on a job, I help out in a specialized field. It doesn't mean I don't can't count that contract. I do. It's my contract. Okay. But whenever you list them as a reference, you want to mention to how you were working on that project as a subcontractor in that part of it. Commercial contracts, just as strong. There's anything that you're getting paid money to do and to perform. So they're acceptable specifically when they're relevant. Okay, and I'm using one right now where I'm doing a demolition contract, and they have a big, large project was private there, and I have 5 federal contracts now for this individual, but I'm including the commercial in there to help out and say this is diversity of work. So make sure you use them appropriately. CPARs, the ratings, there's the basic was outstanding, very good, satisfactory, marginal, and unsatisfactory. You really want to get outstanding and very good. Okay, so that's there. That's the contractor performance assessment rating system. So that's a CPARs, and that's behind the scenes, so you don't necessarily see that. So you ask about your rating whenever you end the project and try to get that and speak to them and tell them how important it is to, and that shouldn't be that um you're begging for it or anything, but to say, listen, I was being responsive to you, and I know that potentially there's an issue here or there. I did try to help you and try to assist it. Every project has problems. That's not something uncommon, especially when you're doing construction and different areas. But as long as you are receptive and understanding of what they've asked you to do and you respond back in responsive ways, then you should get that outstanding or very good. And that's for it. It means something. And then, of course, references themselves, people who could speak on your behalf. Sometimes I call these character references people, not mom and dad, but, good friends, things people can speak to you and say, this person is a great person. You can count on them and they're going to do a good job. That becomes really important whenever you're first starting out. You can have a character reference of some sort, but then the references themselves within those organizations can change. So you can always just check back and keep back in touch with them, making sure you got the right person. So step one, when you're getting involved with this, make sure you build and maintain a past performance library. And when I set up a drive for our customers and clients, we have one we give to you. It's a Google Drive, and a part of that, there's one section just as performance and references, and there's one with 6 key fundamentals, and having a reference sheet which you can go to at any given time and pull the information is very helpful. And when you do a reference sheet, it needs to have, for every contract, that name, the number, the agency value, and period of time that you served it, but also a description of what you did for them. So write a one-page summary for each of those, so you have that. And then may not put the whole full page in there, but you could put a summary of that and in that. And also, if it's a federal, get that CPARS rating and score that on that summary for yourself. Track measurable outcomes. And that's important that you do that. The KP, basically how you perform, and keep those and list them there. If you created any cost savings, how uptime percentages, how your delivery rate of commodities, things of this nature. You update the library quarterly, and keep it up to date all the time. Do not wait until you're filing a proposal. That's one of my pet peeves, is trying to get the references from my clients and say, I really need you to do this. It's so important. And sometimes then people don't quite understand how that is. And so you have to have it there. So a pro tip, you got to keep a win file. This is where and even I have 4 files for every client. Actually, 5th for some of them. That's because we really plan. So the planning of a bid, we have active bids, we have submitted bids, we have the no bid category, and we have the win category. Okay, keep that win in there. Okay, every email, compliment, anything you receive, keep it. Ask whenever they actually send you something unsolicited, say, hey, can I use this? And make sure you have that information ready to go. That's a pro tip there. And I'll just say, don't be afraid to ask for that. People that generally like to help you. They always do. Select your most relevant references. Okay, so when you start getting a pile of them, make it something that you can ties to that RFP scope, not just your best work, but something that ties back to that individual government. relevance to new scope matters more than recency alone. So if it's something that is something similar to what that organization is doing, it really means more to them than that's one reason I'm including this private sector uh, uh, transaction for the stimulus contract in this one I'm writing right now, because it is relevant to what they were doing almost exactly. So it's important. Contract size relevance matters too. Um, put in a small reference on a $5 million bid is weak. Okay, just so you know. Okay. Um, but if it's a really good reference, I'd make some exceptions to that. Always get your best reference first, put it on there. So maybe you just don't speak to the size. Okay. But it's they do like to see large contracts, large references. Choose the best three or five and to demonstrate and use them routinely. They don't mind. Set three, contact every reference before you use them. That's just courtesy. But by all means, but I also like to know what they're going to say about you. Okay. But be courteous when you ask somebody to serve as a reference. That's a big job. And they understand that. I get a lot of calls from folks, in my class, and they want references for when they go get a job. I take it seriously every time. And I always say, tell me what you want me to say about you, write it up, send it to me. And then I'll see if I can say it. Okay. Confirm they are willing to respond. We ask them to specifically to a government reference call, because government reference call is a little bit different. They're going to ask you some specifics, and then they're going to have that. It's not the same as a private reference. Brief them on the opportunity that you're looking at securing, and what the agency would likely ask when you list somebody, specifically the ones, if you're not doing this routine over and over again, but if there's something unique, you want to make sure they know. Ask if there are any performance concerns that they might raise, so you don't have any surprises and you can explain that away. Okay. Or drop them. That's probably what I do. Okay, so they have their step three. Step four, write a quantified past performance narrative. Have that ready to go. Okay. For each reference, have those, those five things, that they're that two, four, one, two, three, four, five. You always say five, make sure it's five. Look at it as six. One, two, three, four, five. Okay. Agency contract number, period, total value, and scope summary. Okay. Summary of what you did for them. That's the most important part. Use some analytics in there when you do that. Talk about the good things too. Use the government's required format. It's usually an SF 1420 on there, and you got to give them the information. Don't skimp on the information. Ugh, I hate when that happens. Pet peeve. Quantify every result. Okay, reducing processing time. Put a number into it. Don't just say improved efficiency. Give some specifics. Tie the narrative directly to the current scope of work. So once you do it, go back and wordsmith it so it fits what you actually do. So show a direct parallel there. Step five, manage your CPARS ratings actively. Okay. If you're at the federal level, keep up with it. Okay. Always fight for what outstanding on every contract. So that isn't that. I want to say that again. Fight, fight, fight. Okay. This one negative review could ruin your contracting career. So do whatever is necessary to get that outstanding. It's important. If you receive a rating you disagree with, tell them, no, stop. Let's fix this. I'm listening to you. I hear what you're saying. Tell me now so that I can fix it and get it correct. And you'll learn that about me, that I realize if I do make a mistake, I don't see something that satisfies you, that I can help overcome that, because you have a right to do that, and you should use that. You can submit a rebuttal if you need to, put it in the record. Request a CPARS assessment at the end of every federal government contract performance. And I would also just say, before someone does something in a negative way, they will tell you in government contracts, they'll almost always give you an opportunity to correct it. And you got to listen. So if you don't do something, they'll say, uh-oh, you're not doing something. Don't take that as an assault on your credibility. Take that as a critique, and you got to get it fixed. Okay. And that's the way it's meant to do. That's what they tell you. So they can give you that outstanding. So a pattern of outstanding ratings compounds powerfully over time. So you need to get those. At the end of, just a pro tip, at the end of your review, schedule a conversation with the contractor officer on record before the end of the contract. So mistakes. I like to end our slides with these things you should avoid and you can't avoid. Do not give them dollar values on your past performance. You need to tell them size of the project. That's almost always a request. And don't be afraid to just say if it's small. That's not a big deal. You did something. We're keeping. I have a client who's doing right now. There's actually a number of transactions. If I think I just as we all know, there was shutdown. Government still got the funding. They weren't able to work in a 2 month cycle almost. Well, guess what? We're getting to the end of the fiscal year. Now they got all this money. There's a lot of smaller transactions that are happening, and if you got a listing, $3,000 order here, $10,000 purchase order there, these are only, the only government credit cards, and you can list those, get them on there. That helps. Selecting the most recent contracts instead of the most relevant to the scope. Always scope, scope, scope. Think scope, scope, scope. Okay. Not contracting references before the proposal was submitted. They're going to call them, so you don't want to get anybody called, out of the blue. They just don't want. That's not a good thing to do. Using another company's past performance as if it were your own. That's not the same as a subcontractor. Wait. Okay. So whenever I'm on a project, I told you I work for folks all the time. I don't say that. I don't use their past performance. I ask for my own. Okay, as a part of that, and I will discuss how that actually is within the proposal, and make sure it's clear, accuracy, brevity, and clarity. Don't burden them with information, but tell them, say, hey, yes, I did this project. The overall for the rating was within this company, it was perfect, and I was a big part of that. This is what I did for them, and my part was help made that perfect. Leaving disputed CPAR ratings unaddressed. Always address something. Waiting until proposal time to build your past performance library. Don't wait. Get this stuff done, folks. Okay. In fact, before I work with my clients, I give them a sheet and they have to check off references are number one. And so once you get your references there, then we can move forward. Okay. I'm pretty particular about how I do things. Your past performance plan. Uh, Leaving today, you're going to build that performance library first. Get it up. Keep it up to date every quarter. Make a bit of note on your calendar. So easy to do these days. Go in there and get that done correctly. You'll be glad you did. Select references by relevance. Contact every reference. And I'll go back onto that one about relevance. So if you got 10 or 15 of them, like I said earlier, I've worked with some 400 now. I organized them by topic and by geographic location, by size. You can have that all done now with spreadsheets. It's not that difficult. Contact every reference before submission. Don't catch anybody by surprise. People like to talk about you. That's just a fact. Quantify results in your narratives. That's always is helpful. And then always request that CPAR's at contract close and fight for that as you go forward. So here we are getting to the end of this. I want to apologize for coming a little bit later today. I let things slip. Today is my son's birthday, so we're getting ready to grill out here a little bit later. And I was thinking about that, making sure I was had everything because it started raining, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, it's going to run the afternoon, but it's not. It's Atlanta, so 1 minute it's raining, 1 minute it's not. Daily alerts. Make sure you register for them. Federal and state bids delivered every morning to you right on time, 3 a.m., 4 a.m. You can wake up and get going. Um, all 50 states, state, local, and federal in one daily alert. So that make sure you have, and also provinces of Canada and all Mexico states now. You'll find that a significant portion of our services are completely free, including our Gov schools. So make sure you tap into it. And I would point out today that we actually haven't told everybody this specifically, but when we get finished with this, and it's already starting to be available, we're going to have you can get a piece of my I guess you can say it's a piece of my memory. It's a new concept, and so you can actually get the document that's basically a handoff document where I'll give you all this information to a memory file, and then you're able to put it into your AI tools, and then you'll have all this data in your background, everything we said and done. 28 years worth of experience. It seems like it's that's a good value right there. I think it's going to be available to you. And it's kind of cool. You can do this kind of thing. I was telling somebody that I've always been an entrepreneur, and so when I think I was like 10 or 11, I used to sell pine cones, really large Georgia pine cones in moss. And I set up a stand next to this store in South Georgia that I live close to, and sold them to unsuspecting individuals that they had. I think they had little red bugs on them. If you've ever been around Georgia moss, you understand what I'm saying. But people like that stuff. Boy, they would buy that, and I'd sell out every time. So now I'm selling pieces of memory. I did not include that memory in the presentation. Only the things related to government contracting. And now, we've been doing this for a while, since 1998. We have over 1 billion bit alerts delivered. So I thank you every day for giving us the opportunity to serve you. So that's our presentation today. If you got any questions, you can just reach out to us. So you can call us. It's 800-492-8523. I have mentioned that tomorrow afternoon, I'm not going to do this. I'll reschedule it. I'll announce when it's going to be rescheduled. I'm going to watch the soccer game tomorrow afternoon. So that's once in a lifetime. I want to take care of that. And so we'll get to, and that will be course 4. I think we got off on our numbers a little bit. Um, and I'll let you know, we're going to talk specifically about state and local government contracts and how important that is. So I'll send out an email to our clients, to everyone, to let them know when we're going to do that. So have a great afternoon. If you're on YouTube, thank you for joining us, and make sure you reach down there and subscribe or hit that like button. It always helps us to be able to spread the news there. And thank you for coming today.